The chamber was enormous, stretching upward until the ceiling vanished into darkness. Thousands of alien beings filled the tiered seats, their forms ranging from crystalline structures that pulsed with inner light to massive creatures covered in scales and fur. The air hummed with translation devices working overtime, converting countless languages into a symphony of understanding. Commander Jake Morrison stood at the center of it all, his dark blue uniform pressed and perfect. Beside him, Dr. Lisa. Grant adjusted her glasses nervously, her tablet clutched against her chest. They were the only humans in a room full of species that had been traveling the stars for thousands of years. The Speaker of the Council rose from its throne. Jexthal was a being of living crystal, its body refracting light into rainbow patterns across the walls. When it spoke, the words came through their earpieces in perfect English, though the original language sounded like wind chimes in a storm. "Humanity of Earth," Jexthal announced, its voice echoing through the vast chamber. "We have reviewed your application for full membership in the Galactic Council. We have studied your history, your culture, and your technological development. We have reached our decision." Jake felt his heart pounding. Earth had worked for 50 years toward this moment, ever since first contact with the Velnash trading fleet. Humanity had dreamed of joining the galactic community. They had shared their art, their music, their science. They had opened their world to alien visitors and sent their best and brightest to learn from older civilizations. "Your species shows remarkable potential," the speaker continued. "Your adaptability is noteworthy. Your creativity is impressive. However, these same qualities make you dangerous." Lisa's hand found Jake's arm, squeezing tight. "In your short history, you have waged countless wars. Your planet still bears the scars of nuclear weapons, chemical warfare, and environmental destruction. While many species go through violent periods, humanity's capacity for organized violence exceeds safe parameters. Your literature glorifies conflict. Your entertainment celebrates warfare. Even your sports are battles in miniature." A murmur ran through the alien assembly. Some sounded approving, others disappointed. "Furthermore," Jexthal raised one crystalline limb for silence, "humanity shows a disturbing tendency toward rapid, unpredictable change. You have gone from primitive agriculture to spaceflight in merely 10,000 years. This pace is unprecedented and unstable. The Council requires predictability for the safety of all member species." Jake stepped forward. "Speaker, may I respond?" "You may speak, Commander Morrison." "Yes, humans have fought wars. We've made terrible mistakes, but we've also learned from them. We've built a unified world government. We've eliminated poverty and hunger. We've cleaned our oceans and restored our forests. We've done in 50 years what you say should be impossible. Doesn't that prove we can change? That we can be better?" The speaker's crystalline form seemed to dim slightly. "It proves you are unpredictable. Today you are peaceful. Tomorrow, next year, next century? The Council cannot risk the stability we have maintained for 2 million years on the hope that humanity will remain docile." "We're not asking to be docile," Lisa said, her voice stronger than Jake expected. "We're asking to be partners. We have things to offer. Our medical research, our art, our perspective as a young species." "Your offer is noted and rejected." Jexthal's words fell like hammers. "The Galactic Council hereby declares Earth and its solar system under indefinite quarantine. All trade agreements are dissolved. All cultural exchanges are terminated. All diplomatic channels are closed. Effective immediately, humanity is forbidden from leaving its home system. Sentinel stations will be established to enforce this boundary." The chamber erupted in noise. Some aliens were clearly pleased, others upset. Jake felt the floor dropping away beneath him, though he remained standing. "This is not a punishment," the speaker said, though its tone suggested otherwise. "This is a protective measure. Perhaps in time humanity will mature into a species suitable for galactic society. Until then, you will remain in your corner of space, alone." The meeting ended. Guards, tall beings with too many arms and eyes that glowed purple, escorted Jake and Lisa back to their ship. The messenger was small compared to the massive council station, a human-built vessel that had taken 6 months to reach this place through the hyperspace lanes. They launched in silence. Jake piloted while Lisa stared out the window at the receding station. Around them, space was filled with ships of every imaginable design, all coming and going from the heart of galactic civilization. A civilization that had just slammed its door in humanity's face. "What do we tell them?" Lisa asked quietly. "What do we tell Earth?" Jake didn't answer right away. He engaged the hyperspace drive, and the stars stretched into lines as they entered the faster-than-light corridor that would carry them home. Only then did he speak. "We tell them the truth. The Council is afraid of us. They think we're too dangerous, too unpredictable. They think we'll collapse without their help." He turned to look at her, and Lisa was surprised to see he was smiling slightly. "They have no idea what they just did." "What do you mean?" "They just told humanity that we can't join their club, that we're not good enough for their perfect galactic society, that we need to sit in our room and think about what we've done." Jake's smile grew wider. "Lisa, what do humans do when someone tells us we can't do something?" Understanding dawned on her face. "We do it anyway." "We do it better," Jake corrected. "They've been using the same hyperspace lanes for millions of years, following the same routes, visiting the same worlds. They've forgotten what it means to explore, to discover, to push boundaries." He looked back at the view screen where Earth's sun was still weeks away. "They think they've caged us. They don't realize they just let us off the leash." The journey home took 5 months. They had plenty of time to write their report, to plan their presentation, to prepare for the panic they knew would come. When they finally entered Earth's solar system, they saw the signs of humanity's brief time among the stars. Orbital platforms built with alien assistance, communication arrays using galactic standard technology, trade stations now empty of the alien merchants who had visited them. The messenger docked at Luna Station, and Jake and Lisa took a shuttle down to Earth. They landed in Geneva, where the United Earth government had its headquarters. Within hours, they stood before the General Assembly, every nation's representative, present, every screen on Earth broadcasting their words. Jake delivered the news simply and clearly. Earth was exiled. The quarantine would begin in 30 days. Sentinel stations would watch them, making sure no human ship left the solar system. They were alone. The assembly hall erupted in shouts and arguments. Some called for war, though everyone knew humanity couldn't fight the entire galaxy. Others called for desperate diplomacy, for appeals and begging. A few simply wept. Admiral Helen Cruz, commander of Earth's United Space Forces, stood up. She was a tall woman with iron-gray hair and eyes that had seen combat in the last of Earth's wars, back before unification. Her voice cut through the chaos. "Enough." The room fell silent. "They've made their decision. We can cry about it, or we can get to work." She looked directly at Jake and Lisa. "You two spent 6 months among them. You saw their technology, their ships, their stations. Question, are they better than us?" Jake considered carefully. "They're older. They have knowledge we don't. But better? No, Admiral. In some ways, they're worse. Their technology hasn't advanced significantly in thousands of years. They follow the same patterns, use the same methods. They're comfortable." Helen nodded slowly. "And humans are never comfortable." She turned to address the entire assembly. "Ladies and gentlemen, the galaxy just told us to go to our room. I suggest we use the time wisely. We have 30 days before those sentinel stations arrive. I recommend we start making plans they won't expect. Because if there's one thing humanity does well, it's surviving when everyone says we can't." In the back of the room, scientists and engineers were already pulling out tablets and starting conversations. The panic was fading, replaced by something else. Something dangerous and exciting. Humanity had just been told no. The galaxy had just made a terrible mistake. The exile had begun, but so had something else. Something the Galactic Council, in all its ancient wisdom, had failed to predict. Humanity was smiling. 5 years had passed since the Sentinel stations took their positions around Earth's solar system. The massive alien structures floated in the darkness, their sensors watching every human movement. their weapons ready to enforce the quarantine. They recorded everything. Every ship launch, every transmission, every burst of energy from human space. Their reports to the Galactic Council were consistent and boring. Humanity had retreated inward. Ship construction had decreased. Most activity centered on Mars colonization and asteroid mining. Exactly what you'd expect from a species confined to one system. The humans were behaving themselves, accepting their exile with surprising grace. The Sentinels saw what they were programmed to see. They didn't see what was happening in the shadows. Deep in the asteroid belt, hidden behind rocks rich in metals that confused sensors, Chief Engineer Paul Martinez floated in his work suit, watching the construction that spread before him. Thousands of workers moved like insects across the skeleton of something enormous. It didn't look like the clumsy early ships humans had built. This was sleek, purposeful, and completely invisible to the watchers at the system's edge. Section 7 reports hull plating complete, his assistant said through the comm. Section 8 is ahead of schedule on the drive systems. Paul allowed himself a small smile. Good. How many more weeks until the test? If everything goes perfect? 3 weeks. Realistically? 5. Make it 4, Paul said. We're racing against time and Murphy's Law. I want buffer room for when things go wrong. And things did go wrong, constantly. Building in secret meant building without the open supply chains and communication networks that made normal construction possible. Every piece had to be manufactured in scattered facilities, transported through routes that looked natural to watching sensors, and assembled by workers who could never talk about what they were doing. But humans were getting good at secrets. On Europa, one of Jupiter's frozen moons, Dr. Megan Ross stared at equations that filled 3 entire wall screens. She had been working on the same problem for 2 years. Ever since Admiral Cruz had pulled her into a classified project with a simple question, can we travel faster than light without using their hyperspace lanes? The aliens used natural corridors through space-time, phenomena that had existed since the universe began. They had mapped these lanes over millions of years, building gates and stations along the routes. It was efficient, well-established, and completely controlled. Every ship that used the lanes could be tracked, monitored, taxed, and if necessary, stopped. Megan had approached the problem differently. What if you didn't need the lanes? What if you could create your own temporary pathway? Something that existed only as long as you needed it and then vanished. It would be slower than the established routes, but it would be invisible, untraceable, free. I think I've got it, she said aloud, though she was alone in the lab. Her fingers flew across the keyboard running simulations. The numbers aligned. The theory held. A ship equipped with her drive wouldn't travel through hyperspace. It would create a bubble around itself, slipping sideways through reality in a way that shouldn't work according to Council physics, but did according to hers. She ran the simulation again, and again. Each time it worked. We need to build a prototype, she told Admiral Cruz in their next encrypted call. How big? Shuttle size to start. If it works, we scale up. You have 4 months, Cruz said. Paul needs your drive systems integrated into the main fleet by then. Megan felt her stomach tighten. 4 months to turn theory into reality. I'll need more staff. Already approved. They're on their way to Europa. Don't let me down, Doctor. Back on Earth, in a training facility hidden beneath the Arizona desert, Captain Danny Fisher watched his students run through zero-gravity combat drills. These weren't soldiers, though many had military backgrounds. They were explorers, scouts, and pioneers. People who had volunteered for a mission they couldn't tell their families about. Remember, Danny called out as they practiced maneuvering in the simulated environment. Where we're going, there's no support. No backup. No fleet coming to save you if things go bad. You need to rely on your crew and your training. One of the students, a young woman named Kelly, raised her hand. Captain, are you going to tell us where we're actually going? Danny smiled. When you graduate, you'll get your assignment. Until then, train like your life depends on it, because it will. He'd asked Admiral Cruz the same question months ago. Where exactly were they planning to send these ships once they were built? Cruz had pulled up a star chart and pointed to the vast empty spaces beyond the mapped regions. Out there, past where the Council's territory ends, past where their sensors can reach. We're going to places they don't know about because they stopped exploring millions of years ago. Looking for what? Everything. New worlds, new resources, new friends maybe. and room to grow without anyone watching over our shoulder. The training continued. Day after day, week after week, humans prepared for something the galaxy thought impossible. In orbit above Earth, hidden by stealth technology that Admiral Cruz's engineers had developed by studying and improving the Council's own sensor systems, the ships took shape. Not one or two, but 50 of them, each designed to carry 500 people into the unknown, each equipped with Megan's experimental drives, each supplied with Nina Blake's closed-loop biological systems that could sustain human life indefinitely. Dr. Nina Blake worked in a laboratory that officially studied Mars terraforming. Unofficially, she was solving a much harder problem: how to keep humans alive on generation ships that might spend decades in deep space before finding a new home. The key is diversity, she explained to her team. We need multiple redundant systems: hydroponics, aquaponics, insect farming, algae cultivation. If one system fails, 3 others pick up the slack. Her assistant, a young botanist named Alex, gestured at the growing chambers. We're basically building miniature Earths. Exactly, Nina agreed. Earth that can survive without sunshine, without rain, without any of the natural cycles we take for granted. Humans are leaving home. We need to bring home with us. The work was exhausting and often tedious, tweaking genetics to make plants grow faster, engineering bacteria that could process waste more efficiently, testing and retesting every system until failure was impossible. But slowly, surely, it worked. Nina's gardens thrived in sealed environments. Her protein sources reproduced reliably. Her water recyclers achieved 99% efficiency. We're ready, she finally told Cruz. Send us anywhere in the galaxy and we won't starve. On Mars, in the colonies that the Sentinels could see and monitor, life continued normally. Humans dug into the red soil, built domed cities, and complained about Earth's travel restrictions. The Council received regular reports about Mars development. Everything seemed routine and expected. What the Council didn't know was that every supply ship heading to Mars carried components for the hidden fleet. Every scientific mission to the outer system delivered workers and materials to the construction sites. The visible colonies were real, but they were also the perfect cover. Jake Morrison, now promoted to Director of Exploration, reviewed the timeline in his office. He was older now, gray showing at his temples, but his eyes held the same determination they'd had 5 years ago, when the Council pronounced its judgment. Lisa Grant entered without knocking, as she always did. They'd become close during their journey back from the Council, bonded by shared failure that was becoming shared victory. Megan's prototype works, Lisa announced. She jumped a shuttle from Europa to Saturn and back. The Sentinels detected nothing. Jake felt his heart race. We can really do this. We can really do this, Lisa confirmed. Paul says the fleet will be ready in 6 months. Danny's training programs are producing qualified crews. Nina's biological systems are tested and proven. All the pieces are coming together. And then what? Jake asked. We just leave? Take 50,000 people and vanish into space? That's the plan, Lisa said. She sat down across from him. Jake, are you having doubts? No, yes, maybe. He rubbed his face. The Council thinks they've contained us. If we leave, they'll know they failed. They might retaliate against Earth. Earth will be fine, Lisa said firmly. We're leaving enough people and resources behind to thrive. And honestly, I don't think the Council will retaliate. I think they'll be confused. Their entire worldview says we should be collapsing, begging them to lift the quarantine. When we just disappear instead, it's going to break their brains. Jake laughed despite his worries. 50 ships full of humans heading into completely unknown space. What could possibly go wrong? Everything, Lisa said cheerfully. But that's never stopped us before. 5 years of secret construction, 5 years of hidden innovation, 5 years of humanity working in the shadows while the galaxy watched and saw nothing important. The Sentinels continued their boring reports. Mars colonies continued expanding. Earth's traffic continued its predictable patterns. And deep in the asteroid belt, behind Jupiter's radiation, in facilities scattered across the solar system, 50 ships prepared to break the quarantine in a way the Council had never imagined. 10 years after the exile, Commander Eric Stone stood on the bridge of the horizon and watched Saturn's rings glitter in the darkness. Behind his ship, 49 others waited in precise formation, hidden in the moon shadows where the Sentinel stations couldn't detect them. Each vessel carried 500 souls, men and women who had said goodbye to everything they knew for a chance at something more. "All ships report ready, Commander," Lieutenant Amy Chen announced from her station. Her voice was calm, but Eric could hear the excitement underneath. They'd trained for this moment for 2 years. Eric looked around his bridge. Every station was manned by the best humanity had to offer. People who had scored perfectly in testing, who had passed psychological evaluations, who had volunteered knowing they might never see Earth again. His crew, his responsibility. "Open a channel to the fleet," he ordered. "Channel open, sir." Eric took a breath. "This is Commander Stone to all ships. 10 years ago, the Galactic Council told humanity we were too dangerous for their perfect civilization. They locked us in our system and expected us to wither. Instead, we built. We learned. We prepared." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "Today we stop asking permission to exist. Today we take our place in the universe on our own terms. Engage drives on my mark. 3, 2, 1 mark." 50 ships activated their experimental drives simultaneously. Space around them shimmered like heat waves on desert sand. The fabric of reality bent, twisted, and opened. Unlike the violent explosions of entering hyperspace lanes, this was quiet, almost gentle. The ships didn't accelerate. They simply stopped being in one place and started being in another. The Sentinel stations detected the energy surge 3 seconds too late. By the time their automated system sent alerts to the Council, the human fleet was already gone, traveling through regions of space that didn't exist on any galactic map. Inside the horizon, Eric felt the strange sensation of moving without movement. The view screen showed stars, but they were different stars. Constellations no human had ever seen. They were beyond the boundary now, past the edge of known space. "Status report," he called out. "All systems normal," Amy replied. "Navigation confirms we're outside Council space. Sensors show no pursuit. All 49 other ships report successful transition." A cheer went up from the bridge crew. Eric allowed himself a smile. They'd actually done it. Humanity had slipped out of its cage like smoke through bars. "Where are we?" asked Lieutenant Jack Porter from the tactical station. "Nowhere," Eric said. "Somewhere. Everywhere the Council never bothered to look. That's our space now." The fleet traveled for 3 days through their self-made pathways, heading further and further from anything familiar. Dr. Sophie Lin, the Horizon's chief science officer, spent those days glued to her instruments, cataloging everything they passed. "Eric, you need to see this," she said on the 3rd day, her voice tight with excitement. He joined her at the science station. The screen showed a star system ahead. Not just any system. One with planets. Multiple planets in the habitable zone. "Life signs?" Eric asked. "Won't know until we get closer, but the preliminary readings are incredible. 3 worlds that could support human life without domes or artificial atmosphere. Eric, this is better than Earth. This is paradise." The fleet dropped out of their drive at the edge of the system. Every ship deployed probes, sending out thousands of tiny scouts to gather data. The information that came back made people cry with joy. The 3rd planet from the star was perfect. Oceans covered 60% of the surface. Continents showed green vegetation. The atmosphere was breathable. Gravity was 90% of Earth normal. Temperature ranges were comfortable. There were no signs of intelligent life, just plants and animals living in pristine wilderness. "Take us in," Eric ordered. The Horizon entered orbit around the planet they would eventually name New Earth. From space it looked like a jewel, blues and greens swirling with white clouds. Jack Porter led the first landing party, taking a shuttle down to a coastal region where rivers met the sea. They landed in a meadow filled with plants that looked almost like grass but weren't quite. The air smelled sweet like flowers and rain. Jack was the first to step out, his boot touching soil no human had ever walked on. "New Earth," he said, his words recorded for history. "We found it. Tell everyone back home there's room out here. Room for billions of us." The landing party spent hours exploring. They found water so clean you could drink it straight from streams. Trees that bore fruit safe for human consumption. Animals that watched them with curiosity but no fear. It was Eden, waiting for humanity to arrive. But New Earth was only the beginning. As the fleet spread out exploring the region beyond Council space, they found more worlds. Desert planets with underground oceans, ice worlds with geothermal heat creating pockets of warmth, gas giants with moons that held atmosphere and life, and they found something else. Ruins. Dr. Sophie Lynn stood in what had once been a city, now weathered by millions of years into strange geometric shapes. The architecture was nothing like human or council design. The materials were unknown, some kind of crystalline metal that still held structural integrity despite impossible age. They were everywhere, she told Eric when she returned to the horizon. Every system we've explored has traces of them. Someone built an empire out here long before the council existed, someone who went even further than we're going. What happened to them? Eric asked. I don't know, but their technology is incredibly advanced. If we can figure out how even a fraction of this works, we'll leap centuries ahead in our development. The exploration continued. Week after week, month after month, the 50 ships traveled deeper into unknown space. They established protocols for claiming worlds, setting up supply depots and maintaining contact with each other across the vast distances. Then, 6 months into their journey, they encountered something unexpected. Life. Intelligent life. The Velkoth fleet appeared on sensors without warning. 6 massive ships, each one built from what looked like living wood and crystal, traveling in formation. They didn't match any council design profiles. Eric went to full alert. Weapons ready but not powered. Open hailing frequencies. The response came quickly, in a language the translation computers struggled with at first. Then words formed. Unknown vessels. You are in Velkoth space. Identify yourself. Eric took a breath. This was humanity's first independent first contact. How they handled it would set the tone for everything that followed. This is Commander Eric Stone of the Human Exploration Fleet. We come in peace from beyond the boundary. We mean no harm to your people. There was a long pause. Then humans? We have heard of you. The Council speaks of a quarantined species too dangerous to release. Yet you are here, explain. Eric smiled. The Council thought they could cage us. They were wrong. We're here to explore, to build, to find our place in the universe. We're not asking anyone's permission anymore. Another pause, longer this time. Then something unexpected happened. The Velkoth ships powered down their weapons. This is Navigator Jeshik of the Velkoth Free Fleet. Commander Stone, we understand your situation better than you might think. Please lower your weapons as well. We should talk. 2 hours later, Eric sat in a conference room across from Jeshik and 2 other Velkoth representatives. They were tall beings, their skin showing patterns like tree bark, their eyes large and golden. They moved with grace and spoke with what the translator rendered as warmth. The Council exiled you? Jeshik asked. Called us too dangerous, Eric confirmed. Said we were unpredictable and violent. Jeshik made a sound the translator interpreted as laughter. They told us we were too individualistic, that our cultural chaos would disrupt their precious order. We have been traveling the void for 2,000 years, avoiding council space. In all that time, we thought we were alone in our rejection. Understanding passed between them. 2 species, both cast out, both finding freedom in the regions the council ignored. You have found worlds? Jeshik asked. Dozens. Suitable for human life? We're claiming them, building colonies. And the council? Doesn't know where we are, Eric said. We developed our own faster-than-light technology. We can go anywhere without using their hyperspace lanes. All 3 Velkoth sat forward at that. You can travel without the lanes? This is revolutionary. The Council maintains control precisely because they control the lanes. We'd be willing to share the technology, Eric offered, in exchange for cultural exchange, trade agreements, and friendship. Jeshik extended a hand in a gesture that looked remarkably human. Eric shook it, feeling the rough bark-like texture of the alien's skin. Commander Stone, Jeshik said, I think this is the beginning of something important. The Council has ruled for millions of years because they convinced everyone there was no alternative. You humans in just 10 years have proven them wrong. If word spreads that others can be free, that exile is not a death sentence but an opportunity. The whole galaxy changes, Eric finished. News of the contact spread through the human fleet. Within weeks, trade negotiations began. The Velkoth had experience with deep space survival that humanity lacked. Humans had drive technology and weapon systems the Velkoth found fascinating. Both species had resources. 20 years after the exile, Commander Ryan Mitchell walked through the streets of Haven Colony and marveled at what humanity had built. Children laughed in playgrounds that stood beneath trees transplanted from Earth. Markets bustled with people buying food grown in local fields. Above, 3 moons painted the sky in shades of silver and blue that no human had seen before the journey began. Haven was home to 10,000 people now and growing every month. New ships arrived regularly from other colonies, bringing trade goods, news, and families looking for fresh starts. The colony had universities, hospitals, and industries. It had art galleries showing paintings of alien sunsets and concert halls where music blended human and Velkoth traditions. It had a future. Ryan stopped at a cafe and ordered coffee grown on New Earth, shipped across light years of space through routes humanity had carved through reality itself. He sat outside watching people pass. Most of them had been born on ships or colonies, never setting foot on Earth. They spoke with accents that mixed a dozen human languages with alien words. They were something new. His communicator buzzed. "Commander Mitchell, you have an incoming call from Director Sullivan on Earth." Ryan accepted the connection. Kate Sullivan's face appeared on his screen, older now but still sharp-eyed and energetic. She'd been appointed Director of First Contact 5 years ago, managing humanity's growing web of relationships with alien species. "Ryan, we've made contact with another one," Kate said without preamble. "The Corvin. Reptilian species living in scattered asteroid colonies. They're cautious but interested in talking. That makes 17 species we've found beyond the boundary," Ryan said, pulling up his notes. 17 groups that either rejected the Council or were rejected by them, or never knew the Council existed. 18, actually, Kate corrected. "While you were sleeping, we got a signal from something called the Lumini. They're energy beings. Our scientists are still trying to figure out how to communicate properly, but they seem friendly." Ryan shook his head in wonder. The Council spent millions of years mapping what they called the entire galaxy. They convinced everyone that beyond their borders was empty space, dangerous and worthless. And we found 18 civilizations in just 20 years. "They stopped looking," Kate said. "They got comfortable. They forgot that the universe is bigger than their maps." She paused, her expression growing more serious. "Ryan, the Council is starting to ask questions. Their agents are reporting strange rumors in the border regions. Ships disappearing, energy signatures that don't match known technology. They're investigating." "Let them investigate," Ryan said. "They can't find what they're not looking for. Our drive technology leaves no traces in their hyperspace lanes. Our colonies are light years beyond their sensor range. We're ghosts to them. For now," Kate warned. "But we're making a lot of noise out here. Treaties with the Velkoth, the Corvin, the Lumine, trade networks spanning dozens of systems. Eventually, someone's going to notice that something is happening in the regions they declared empty." Ryan thought about that. 20 years of building in secret couldn't last forever. What does Admiral Cruz say? She thinks we have maybe 10 more years before the Council figures it out. Which means we need to be strong enough by then that it doesn't matter what they think. After Kate signed off, Ryan walked to Haven's spaceport. Ships came and went constantly now, carrying goods and people across the network humanity had built. He recognized designs from 5 different species, all working together in the landing patterns. Humans directing traffic, Velkoth ships delivering biological supplies, Corvin transports hauling minerals. It was beautiful. It was the future the Council had said was impossible. On New Earth, humanity's first and largest colony, Dr. Lisa Grant stood in front of a class of students. She was 60 now, her hair completely gray, but her mind as sharp as ever. She taught xenobiology at New Earth University, passing on knowledge she'd gained from decades of study. "The Council species have been using the same technology for thousands of years," she explained to her students, who ranged from humans to Velkoth to a single Corvin who sat in specially designed furniture. "They've plateaued. They improve incrementally, but they've forgotten how to innovate. They've forgotten how to ask what if." A human student raised her hand. "Professor, why did they plateau?" "They're clearly intelligent." "Comfort," Lisa answered. "Success. When you've been the dominant power for millions of years, when everything works smoothly, why change? Why take risks?" They became focused on maintaining what they had instead of reaching for what they could have. "But we didn't plateau," the Corvin student said, her translator rendering her hissing speech into words. "My people were alone for centuries, struggling to survive in our asteroids. When humans found us, we were still innovating because we had to." "Exactly," Lisa agreed. "Necessity drives innovation. The Council hasn't needed anything in ages, but out here beyond their borders, all of us need everything. We need new ways to communicate, new ways to share resources, new ways to live together, and that need makes us stronger. She pulled up a holographic display showing the network of human and allied colonies, 43 human worlds now, with more being surveyed every month, dozens more belonging to the Velkoth, Corvin, and other species, all connected by trade, communication, and the shared experience of thriving despite the Council's rejection. This is what happens when outcasts work together, Lisa told her students. We're not trying to recreate what the Council built. We're making something better. Back on Earth, in the offices of the United Government, officials struggled with a unique problem. Earth was thriving, but differently. The population was lower, yes. About 30% of humanity now lived off-world, but those who remained were prosperous. Technology developed in the colonies flowed back to the homeworld. Resources mined in distant systems arrived regularly. Earth was wealthier than it had ever been. The problem was explaining this to the Council spies they knew were watching. We need to look like we're struggling, the Prime Minister said in a secure conference room. The Council expects us to be collapsing. Instead, our economy is booming, our technology is advancing, and our people are happy. That's going to make them suspicious. Admiral Pete Lawson, who had taken over when Helen Cruz retired, nodded. We've been careful. Most of the colony ships launched from hidden bases. The supplies we send out go through routes that look like normal inter-system traffic. But we can't hide success completely. We don't need to hide it, said Director Kate Sullivan, attending the meeting remotely. We just need to time our reveal correctly. The colonies are growing stronger every day. In a few more years, we'll be strong enough that the Council's opinion won't matter. Then we can show them what we've really built. The meeting continued, planning and preparing for the day when humanity would step back into the galactic spotlight, not as supplicants begging for acceptance, but as equals offering something the Council had forgotten: partnership between species that truly respected each other. Meanwhile, on an unnamed planet at the very edge of explored space, Dr. Sophie Lynn made a discovery that would change everything. She'd been studying the ancient ruins that dotted the frontier worlds, trying to understand the civilization that had built them millions of years ago. In a vault deep beneath what had once been a city, she found something intact. A device of some kind, still powered after eons, covered in writing that her translation programs couldn't decipher at first. She spent weeks carefully analyzing it, bringing in linguistic experts from 3 species. When they finally cracked the language, Sophie read the message with growing excitement. It's a star map, she told Eric Stone, who had come to see her discovery. But not just any map. It shows paths through space-time that the ancients used. Paths that go further than anything we've discovered, further than the Council ever imagined. How much further? Eric, this map shows routes to other galaxies. The ancients didn't just explore this galaxy. They explored neighboring galaxies. The Council thinks they control this galaxy. They're like children playing in a sandbox, not realizing there's an entire beach surrounding them. Eric stared at the map, his mind racing with possibilities. If we can use these paths, we can go anywhere, Sophie finished. The Council's territory becomes a tiny island in an infinite ocean. Everything changes. News of the discovery spread through the human network. Scientists from every colony requested access to the data. Engineers began designing ships that could use the ancient pathways. Explorers volunteered for missions to places so distant that light from those regions hadn't reached Earth yet. And in the Council chambers, far away in their comfortable space, officials began receiving strange reports. Ships were vanishing near the boundaries. Not destroyed, just gone, as if they'd slipped through holes in reality. Energy readings showed impossible signatures. Sensors detected brief flashes of activity in regions they'd declared empty eons ago. Speaker Jexthal called an emergency session. Something is happening beyond our borders. Something we don't understand. We need to investigate. But investigating meant sending ships into unexplored space. It meant 30 years after the exile, a single human ship approached the Council's central station. The vessel broadcast on all frequencies, requesting permission to address the Galactic Council. It didn't hide. It didn't use stealth. It announced itself proudly, identifying as the messenger the same ship that had carried humanity's representatives home after the exile. The Council station went into chaos. Humanity was quarantined. The Sentinel stations reported that Earth remained within its boundaries. Yet here was a human ship, arriving through the hyperspace lanes as if the exile had never happened. Speaker Exiled convened an emergency session. Every council species sent representatives. They needed to understand what was happening. The Sentinels insisted the quarantine remained intact. No human ship had crossed the boundaries they watched. Yet evidence floated outside their station, waiting patiently for permission to dock. Let them come, Exiled decided. We will hear what they have to say. Ambassador Kyle Wright walked through the halls of the council station accompanied by 6 others. 3 were human. 3 were not. A Velkoth navigator named Jashik, grown old in humanity's service. A Corvin engineer whose scales gleamed under the station's lights. A Lumini representative who appeared as a gentle glow of contained energy in a specially designed suit. They entered the grand chamber where humanity had been judged 30 years before. Thousands of alien beings filled the seats, their attention focused on the small group at the chamber's center. Kyle wore a simple suit, earth blue with the emblem of the United Government on his chest. He was young, born 5 years after the exile, educated in schools that taught both human and alien cultures. He'd never known a time when humanity was alone. Honorable Council, Kyle began, his voice calm and clear. 30 years ago, you exiled humanity from your galactic community. You called us dangerous, unpredictable, a threat to the order you've maintained for millions of years. The chamber was silent, waiting. I'm not here to argue that judgment, Kyle continued. I'm not here to beg for forgiveness or ask you to reconsider. I'm here to tell you what happened after you sent us away. He activated a holographic display that filled the vast chamber. It showed a map of the galaxy. The Council's territory glowed blue, covering roughly 40% of the known space. It looked impressive, vast, dominant. Then Kyle activated the second layer of the display. Green lights appeared, scattered across the map. At first just a few, then dozens, then hundreds, then thousands. They spread beyond the Council's borders, reaching into regions the map labeled as unexplored or empty space. While you've been maintaining your order, Kyle said, we've been exploring, building, discovering. We've found 49 habitable worlds and established colonies on 43 of them. We've made contact with 17 species you've never met, including 6 that you rejected just as you rejected us. Together we've built something new. The chamber erupted in noise. Representatives shouted questions and accusations. Some demanded explanations. Others called for military action. A few sat in stunned silence. Exiled raised its crystalline limbs for quiet. This is impossible. Our sentinels report that Earth remains quarantined. No human ship has left your system. None have left through the hyperspace lanes you watch, Kyle agreed. We found another way. We developed our own faster-than-light technology. We don't need your lanes. We make our own paths. The noise grew louder. Kyle waited patiently for it to die down again. You thought you were protecting the galaxy from us, he said when he could be heard again. Instead, you pushed us to become something greater. You made us go beyond your borders, beyond your rules, beyond your limitations. And out there we found room to breathe, room to grow, room to be what humanity has always been, explorers. He looked around the chamber, meeting as many eyes as he could. Some of your species have been spacefaring for 100,000 years. You've built an impressive civilization. But when was the last time any of you discovered a new world? When did you last push into truly unknown space? When did you last feel the thrill of seeing something no one has ever seen before? The silence that followed was heavy with uncomfortable truth. We're here to invite you to join us, Kyle said. Not to join your council with its rules and restrictions, but to join us beyond the boundaries. There's an entire galaxy out there you've never explored because you were too busy maintaining what you already have. Jashik stepped forward. I am Velkoth. My people were exiled 2,000 years ago for being too individualistic. We thought we were alone in our rejection, wandering the void forever. Then humans found us. They offered friendship, trade, and partnership. In 20 years working with humanity, my people have thrived more than in 2,000 years of isolation. The Corvin engineer spoke next, her translator rendering her words clearly. We never knew the council existed. We lived in asteroids, struggling to survive. Humans found us and asked if we wanted to join their network, not as servants or subjects, as equals, as partners. They shared technology freely. They learned our language. They treated us with respect. The Lumini's words appeared as text on screens throughout the chamber. We are energy beings. The council would have classified us as too alien, too different. Humanity looked at us and saw friends. They built ways for us to communicate. They welcomed us into their network without hesitation. Kyle took control again. You can keep your order. Keep your territories and your treaties. But if any of your people want to see what lies beyond, they're welcome in our network. The only requirement is simple. Be willing to explore. Be willing to build. Be willing to reach for more. He pulled up new images on the display. Ancient ruins scattered across frontier worlds. Technology that predated the Council by millions of years. Star maps showing paths to other galaxies. We've found evidence of civilizations that came before you, Kyle said. Civilizations that explored not just this galaxy but others. They achieved things you've never imagined because they never stopped asking what if. They never stopped pushing further. Speaker Jexthal's crystalline form seemed to dim. You're saying we've stagnated. I'm saying you've plateaued, Kyle corrected gently. You've been successful for so long that you forgot how to grow. But it's not too late. The universe is vast. There's room for your council and our network. There's room for everyone. Outside the station, Captain Laura Bennett commanded the escort fleet that had accompanied the messenger. 25 human ships held position, along with a dozen Velkoth vessels and several Corvin transports. It was a show of strength but also of unity, different species working together, not because rules forced them to, but because they chose to. Any hostile movements? Laura asked her tactical officer. Negative, Captain. Council defense forces are on alert but not acting aggressive. They're confused more than anything. Laura nodded. They'd planned for multiple scenarios, from warm welcome to immediate attack. Confusion was actually the best outcome. It meant the Council didn't know how to respond, which gave Kyle more time to make his case. Back in the chamber, the Council debated furiously. Some representatives were outraged that humanity had violated the quarantine. Others were intrigued by the possibilities Kyle described. A few seemed genuinely excited by the idea of renewed exploration. What you're proposing would upend the entire galactic order, one representative said. A being that looked like living crystal similar to Jexthal. Our system has maintained peace for millions of years. Your system has maintained stagnation, Kyle replied. Peace is wonderful, but peace without growth, without discovery, without challenge, that's not peace. That's just slow decline. And if we refuse your invitation? Another representative asked. If we insist on maintaining the quarantine? Kyle took control again. You can keep your order. Keep your territories and your treaties. But if any of your people want to see what lies beyond, they're welcome in our network. The only requirement is simple. Be willing to explore. Be willing to build. Be willing to reach for more. He pulled up new images on the display. Ancient ruins scattered across frontier worlds. Technology that predated the Council by millions of years. Star maps showing paths to other galaxies. We've found evidence of civilizations that came before you, Kyle said. Civilizations that explored not just this galaxy but others. They achieved things you've never imagined because they never stopped asking what if. They never stopped pushing further. Speaker Jexthal's crystalline form seemed to dim. You're saying we've stagnated. I'm saying you've plateaued, Kyle corrected gently. You've been successful for so long that you forgot how to grow. But it's not too late. The universe is vast. There's room for your council and our network. There's room for everyone. Outside the station, Captain Laura Bennett commanded the escort fleet that had accompanied the messenger. 25 human ships held position, along with a dozen Velkoth vessels and several Corvin transports. It was a show of strength, but also of unity. Different species working together, not because rules forced them to, but because they chose to. Any hostile movements? Laura asked her tactical officer. Negative, Captain. Council defense forces are on alert but not acting aggressive. They're confused more than anything. Laura nodded. They'd planned for multiple scenarios, from warm welcome to immediate attack. Confusion was actually the best outcome. It meant the Council didn't know how to respond, which gave Kyle more time to make his case. Back in the chamber, the Council debated furiously. Some representatives were outraged that humanity had violated the quarantine. Others were intrigued by the possibilities Kyle described. A few seemed genuinely excited by the idea of renewed exploration. What you're proposing would upend the entire galactic order, one representative said. A being that looked like living crystal similar to Jexthal. Our system has maintained peace for millions of years. Your system has maintained stagnation, Kyle replied. Peace is wonderful. But peace without growth, without discovery, without challenge? That's not peace. That's just slow decline. And if we refuse your invitation? Another representative asked. If we insist on maintaining the quarantine? Kyle smiled. Then we'll keep doing what we've been doing. We'll keep exploring, keep building, keep growing. With or without your approval, humanity has found its place in the universe. We're just offering to share it with you. He deactivated the display and straightened his shoulders. 30 years ago, you told us we weren't suitable for galactic civilization. You were right. We weren't suitable for your civilization, but we've built our own, and it's open to anyone brave enough to step beyond the boundaries. The Council didn't give an answer that day. They couldn't. The revelation that humanity had not only survived but thrived, that they'd built an entire network of colonies and alliances beyond Council knowledge, broke something in the ancient bureaucracy's worldview. But in the days and weeks that followed, something interesting happened. Individual ships began appearing at the boundaries between Council space and the frontier. Scientists from long-lived species who remembered when their people had explored eagerly, adventurers who'd grown bored with mapped space, families seeking fresh starts on new worlds. Humanity welcomed them all. The network grew. Species that had been enemies within Council politics found common ground on frontier worlds. Old grudges faded in the face of new challenges. The rigid hierarchies of Council society softened into the more flexible partnerships of frontier life. 50 years after the exile, the Galactic Council still existed. It still maintained its territories and its rules. But its grip on civilization had loosened dramatically. More species now lived in the frontier networks than in Council space. Trade flow,